and human sacrifice. However, the drawings were much more complex than that. They constituted a written language that was often compared to Egyptian hieroglyphics. Every tiny detail, and even the colors chosen, were symbolic and could be interpreted by an Aztec priest. Baldoff could read some of it. 6 circles and an ugly head floating over one young lady meant that her name was Six Monkey. A funeral bundle clearly represented death, and footprints meant a road. The richly detailed pictures could convey any kind of information: astronomy, geography, history, or laws. Unfortunately, in their zeal to destroy these unholy works, the Spanish priests had been all too successful. Nothing comparable to the Rosetta Stone had ever been found, and scholars were still debating how to interpret the colorful symbols. The codices were mysteries that would never be fully solved. As Alexander Baldoff stared at the frolicking figures, wondrous creatures, and strange symbols, he was reminded of tarot cards. In these 2 fragile pages, there were answers to be found if only you knew how to read the intricate symbols. While the Manhattan traffic droned 20 stories below, Baldoff could almost hear the Aztec priests murmuring their chants and incantations. They were talking to him from graves lost over 700 years ago. A door slammed, and Baldoff whirled around, his heart suddenly racing. His wrist felt damp, and he looked down to see that he had spilled a few drops of cognac. He would have to warn James about making loud noises like that. Of course, he had been daydreaming as he stared at the codex, and perhaps the noise hadn't been so loud. He sighed and looked back at his wondrous possession, a piece so complex and dramatic that a person could get lost in it. James, his butler for 30 years, strode through the dining room and into the foyer. His overcoat was draped over his arm. "Mr. Baldoff," he asked politely, "is there anything I can get you before I go?" Baldoff licked the cognac off the age spots on his wrist. "No, James, I'm fine. I was just admiring the codex again. Have you ever seen anything like that?" The elderly servant looked at the ancient pages and shrugged. "Maybe in the Sunday funny papers." Baldoff chuckled. "Yes, it does look like a comic book, but it's not. In these pages, there's ancient wisdom that we'll never understand. The key has been lost forever." "If you say so, sir." James pulled his overcoat on. "I think I'll be going before it gets too cold. I appreciate your giving me the night off, sir." Baldoff shrugged. "Well, if you have to babysit your daughter's children, so be it. I can get along." James nodded as if he never doubted it. "I'll see you in the morning then, sir." "Good night, James." The servant strode to the front door and began unlocking a daunting series of deadbolts and chain locks. "By the way, sir," James said, "did you see the new gargoyles?" "Gargoyles?" asked Baldoff. "Where?" "On the cornices halfway up the building," answered James. "I noticed them about an hour ago when I went out to get your newspaper. Ugly-looking things." "Well, the management had better not try to charge the tenants anything for them," growled Baldoff. "We pay enough fees already." "Yes, sir," said James, unlocking the last bolt. "Is there anything else, sir?" Baldoff rubbed his chin with a gnarled hand. It was clear from his expression that he was fuming over the news about the new statuary. He looked up and noticed that James was still waiting for an answer. "Tell the doorman that I'll want my car at 10 o'clock in the morning," Baldoff said moodily. "I think I'll have a little talk with the management about their idea of building improvements." "Yes, sir. Good night." James hurried out into the thickly carpeted hallway, as though anxious to get away from his suddenly grumpy boss. Baldoff shut the door behind James and locked the bolts and chains as quickly as his arthritic fingers would let him. "Imagine," he thought. "Gargoyles. This building has been standing for close to 70 years. It's practically a landmark. Why go and ruin its appearance with a bunch of ghastly stone statues better suited for decorating a cemetery?" Baldoff snorted.